You're listening to
Catholic Sprouts,
the daily podcast for Catholic kids that strives to plant seeds of faith. Hey there, Sprouts. Today is Wednesday, October 24th, 2018. This week on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we are talking about bravery, and we are drawing many lessons from the life and work of Pope St. John Paul the Great. On Monday, we looked at his childhood and his road to becoming the first Polish pope, the first non-Italian pope in 500 years. Yesterday, we looked at the impact that he had on Poland shortly after he became pope, and we heard his words, "Be not afraid." And we know how powerful those words can be if we walk with Christ. Today we are going to talk about unity. Pope John Paul II did many things while he was pope, but one of the most notable things he consistently did is he worked for unity. And not only unity in the Catholic Church, but unity with other faiths. Unity with forces that had been broken or estranged from the Catholic Church for centuries. He worked to create a closer world. Now, a couple weeks ago on the Catholic Sprouts podcast, we talked about evangelization. And a fundamental part of evangelization is that we know we are in the true church and that we have the Eucharist, which is the true presence of Jesus Christ. Now, Pope John Paul II believed this very much. He was very devoted to all things Catholic, including the Eucharist and Mary. And yet he still reached out to people that were Protestant, Muslim, Jewish, all faiths. He reached out to them. Now, how can he do this? Isn't reaching out to them admitting or maybe making it seem like we don't have the true faith? Not at all. The only way that we can build friendships and share our faith across the world is to seek unity. And oftentimes we forget all that we have in common because we're focusing on the small details that we disagree on. If we're going to help each other, if we're going to build up the name of Jesus Christ, then we need to be unified. To build this unity, Pope John Paul II was one of the most well-traveled leaders of all time. Over the course of his papacy, he visited 129 different countries. No country was too small to get a visit from the Pope, and many countries he visited several times. Here are a couple of the people he reached out to help form some unity between our faith and theirs. He traveled to England and he met with the Queen there. Now, if you know about England, you know that way back, King Henry VIII broke with the Catholic Church and formed his own church, the Church of England or the Anglican Church. There has been strife and heartache there for a long time, and he was the first pope since that to go there and to seek unity with the Queen. He traveled to Haiti, a very poor, small island country, and he stopped and he spoke Creole, their native language, to them, to the thousands that had gathered to see him in the airport. Can you imagine the Pope of the Catholic Church learning this abstract language to speak with his people? He also traveled to the country of Egypt, and while he was there, he met with the Coptic Pope. Now, they're Christian, but they're not Catholic, and for a long time, there has been a lot of division between these two parts of Christianity. He visited a mosque where Muslims worship in Syria. He repeatedly called for Muslims, Christians, and Jews to live together, to work together to do God's will. And in 1995, at World Youth Day in the Philippines, he offered Mass for over 7 million people at once. St. John Paul II had the ability to pull people together, to help them to focus on what they had in common, and to help them realize that they had so much more to love in each other than to hate. He also went to Jerusalem and prayed at the Western Wall, and Pope John Paul II also spent a lot of time apologizing for things that he personally hadn't done, but things that the Catholic Church had done in the past, sometimes in the very distant past. He apologized for the way the Catholic Church hadn't responded during war. He apologized for the way the Catholic Church might have played a role in the slave trade or against women's rights. He apologized for those things. He acknowledged that they were wrong, and he helped those people that had been hurt, even if it was their ancestors that had been hurt, to heal and to hopefully find their way back to the church. And so, Sprouts, here is my challenge for you today. I want you to really embrace this idea of unity. So, spend a moment and think, who do I need to apologize to? Who have I been mean to? Who have I deliberately excluded? And I want you to pray and to try to make that apology today and to seek a way of living where you can focus on what you have in common and not the small things that keep you apart. That's it for Catholic Sprouts today. We'll be back tomorrow, but until then, continue to grow in your faith and truly sprout into the beautiful creation that God intended you to be. One final word to the grown-ups. Thank you so much for listening to the Catholic Sprouts podcast. I would like to invite you to join a special Facebook group just for those that listen to the Catholic Sprouts podcast. We will use this group to connect, to share resources around that week's theme, and simply celebrate raising future saints. To find the direct link to the Facebook group, simply check the notes for this podcast episode.